Dr. Vagelo said that I have to whack you down if you talk. So I know how to whack. So I manage a bunch of filmmakers, so whacking is kind of my specialty. But I know I won't have to. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Vagelos, and the entire awards committee. I am honored to receive this award and deeply humbled, especially in light of the long list of incredibly distinguished honorees that have come before. Now, I have to admit, when I heard the good news, I was a little worried it was a mistake. Unlike many of the people who've stood here in the past, I haven't saved any lives, not a single one, as far as I know. But as a science journalist, I have spent decades covering the work of many who do save lives, scientists and doctors whose stories inspire us all. It means a good deal to me to be here tonight to share some of what I've learned along the way. My life's passion is to tell stories of scientific innovation, and for more years than I care to count, I've had the privilege of running NOVA, the PBS science documentary series. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess all of you are familiar with NOVA. In a sentence, it's the longest running and most popular science program on American television. And when I say longest running series, I mean it. NOVA has been on the air since 1974, which means we're in our 43rd season. And that is an eternity in television. But get this, and I just love this little statistic. It's longer than Seinfeld, I Love Lucy, and Friends combined. Though General Hospital still has a few years on us. So we make about 23 shows a year covering the full range of science and technology disciplines, including biology and the life sciences. And as these numbers demonstrate, our reach is huge. More than 4 million people watch us on television every week, and we're reaching 1 million people a day with our web and social media content. And with this great visibility comes great responsibility to be worthy of the trust placed in us by both the public and the scientific community. But telling the stories of science in a way that's both accurate and accessible is not easy. So how do we do it? I strongly believe that the most effective way to get people to care about science is to invite them inside to see how it's done. Because contrary to what many people believe, science is not a set of facts to memorize, but a process, a way of learning about the world around us, and a highly effective one at that. That's why our main goal at NOVA is to turn our viewers on, as the late physicist Richard Feynman used to say, to the pleasure of finding things out. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, so let's watch a highlight reel that illustrates our mission.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Let's hope. And pray.
Okay.
All right, we are into high electrification in the anvil.
Still getting a few precipitation particles through the instrument.
Are we alone? I think it's the grandest of all scientific questions.
This will be the most exciting adventure we've ever undertaken on Mars.
Coming up on the 3. We are in powered flight. Sky crane has started.
Tango Delta nominal.
UDIP is good. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
don't we ever see events unfold in reverse order? According to the laws of physics, this can happen.
Every bone that came out of the ground was something brand new to science. It was really amazing.
I became deeply interested in understanding who are you in this world? What is the nature of my experience?
We're the Starsky and Hutch of science nerds. We are seeing actual atoms. Isn't this a historic technological achievement?
We still don't know the origin of life. We wonder if life was once on Mars.
Isn't the trouble with your job the not knowing?
That is not the trouble, that is the seduction.
Let's get moving.
So, as you can see, our goal is to create programs that are a blend of education and entertainment that give our viewers something smart and something fun. You don't like the Kardashians? They give our viewers something smart and something fun at the same time. And we don't just do it on television, but online, where most young people are these days, and in classrooms where Nova has been used and beloved by teachers for decades. But to what end? Does it really matter if the American public knows about science? I think we'd agree that the answer is clearly yes, if only because so many of the issues we face, climate change, vaccination, artificial intelligence, and more, are scientific in nature. And I'm sure you'll also agree that we have a long way to go to make that connection as strong as it should be. Now, you've probably seen plenty of scary figures about scientific literacy in the American public. So I'd like to highlight a few things that jumped out at me from a 2015 report by the Pew Research Center looking at public views on science and its impact on society. The first is the huge gap between scientists and the public at large. For example, 88% of scientists think GMO foods are safe, versus just 37% of US adults. And while scientists are nearly unanimous in their agreement that humans evolved from apes, more than a third of the public disagrees. It's also clear that a sizable percentage of the public thinks that scientists are still arguing about issues that have long been settled. For example, almost 40% think scientists are still debating whether human activity is warming our planet. Now, for many years now, I've been following public opinion polls on evolution. And while the numbers fluctuate, somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of all Americans are skeptical of this seminal theory, the foundation of all biology and medicine. Many of those believe that humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. Perhaps they watched too many episodes of the Flintstones. Okay. So how do we operate in this environment of skepticism and, frankly, ignorance? How can we make programs that people will want to watch and that will open their minds to the scientific perspective on the world? It's so simple in theory, it's almost embarrassing to say. In our experience, you just have to tell a good story. Because without an interesting story, I can see you agree, with interesting characters and compelling visuals, no one will watch, no matter how important or well explained the science is. And over the years, some of our best stories have come from your field, the life sciences. It's hard to think of another discipline where the stakes are higher, where what happens in the laboratory is literally a matter of life and death for millions of people. I can think of no better example than the battle to conquer Alzheimer's disease. I've been following this story since the early 1980s, when I worked on a program called Someone I Once Knew with Dr. Timothy Johnson, at a time before it was widely understood that dementia is a pathology, not an inevitable condition of old age. For years after that, I kept looking for a reason to make another film about Alzheimer's. As years turned into decades, the toll of human suffering grew. For every bit of progress to be cheered, new roadblocks and questions were raised. This slow dance between basic and applied research was made even more difficult by how little we know about the human brain. But in the past few years, it appears we might have reached a tipping point. Significant progress in understanding the disease had led to drug trials that hold real hope for patients and their families. And we wanted to tell this story. But to do it well, we needed access from the pharmaceutical companies doing the research and running the high-stakes clinical trials. It took a leap of faith on both sides, but the door eventually opened to follow the trials wherever they may lead. Let's watch a brief clip from our film, Can Alzheimer's Be Stopped?
In Colombia, Genentech's drug will also be tested, but in a different type of trial. Working with the Colombian families, scientists will try to prevent Alzheimer's from striking at all.
So this is truly a unique opportunity to intervene early and show that you can actually prevent the onset of symptoms.
So if you're doing a prevention trial, this is the ideal population to use. We know who's going to get the disease, guaranteed, and let's see if we can prevent it in them. And then you really know whether your drug, your treatment is working.
To see if the drug can stop plaques from forming, scientists will rely on new advances in imaging. Amyloid can now be tagged with radioactive chemicals, so it appears in vivid color in brain scans. Eric Ryman used the new imaging on the Colombian families and made a startling find.
By doing these studies in carriers of this Alzheimer's causing gene versus non-carriers from the same family, we were able to detect these brain changes earlier than many people expected. As you can see, we can look here at the horizontal section.
The imaging captured a silent period. Plaques, seen in red and yellow, started accumulating in carriers around age 30 and peaked some 10 years later, well before the onset of symptoms. It was a revelation. Plaques form long before dementia begins.
This is a complex disease that needs a multi-pronged attack.
Now we're seeing the first drugs going into clinical trials to stop the tangles from spreading. But we don't know what problems they're going to see. Coming up with the right therapy that's safe, gets into the brain, it's potent, hits the right target. This is part of drug discovery. It's incredibly hard.
As tau drugs enter testing, Genentech, Biogen, and Lilly await the results on their antibodies targeting amyloid. Even if they slow dementia, they will not be silver bullets or help everyone. Still, experts predict we may see the first drugs to treat the cause of Alzheimer's by 2020. But progress also depends on getting people to join clinical trials.
It really is a very promising time for the field, and I think that's one thing that patients should keep in mind, is that if we can enroll these trials in half the time, we get the answers much, much sooner.
There's only one way out of this problem, and that's research. And the research community is really active, and the insights are coming rapidly. And that is where we're going to get an answer.
So I feel very fortunate to have played a role in shining a spotlight on research like this. And on the way, I've been very lucky to meet many remarkable scientists. The first NOVA I ever produced was on the eradication of smallpox. And what an experience it was to interview doctors like Bill Foege and the late Don Henderson, who spearheaded that giant achievement. While making our public health series RX for Survival, we interviewed Dr. Roy Vagelos about the fight to eliminate river blindness. And of course, Dr. Michael Brown has been a great friend to NOVA over the years and is a member of our Science Visiting Council. But it's a special thrill to receive an award from an organization whose honorary president emeritus is the late Elie Wiesel, a true hero of mine. In honor of him and the spirit of resilience and unquenchable humanity he represents, I'd like to show you one last clip. This one from a NOVA that hasn't aired yet. It's an archaeology story that takes place in a forest on the outskirts of Vilnius, Lithuania. There, starting in 1941, the Nazis murdered more than 100,000 people. In many ways, this was ground zero for the Holocaust, which was about to be implemented on an industrial scale. Like so much scientific research, archaeology can often be painfully slow. But in this case, a true moment of discovery unfolded in front of our cameras, proving accounts of a dramatic escape that had only been rumored before.
In the former Soviet Republic of Lithuania, near the capital Vilnius, once an epicenter of Jewish culture in Europe, is a place called Ponere, Pona in Yiddish. While it feels like a peaceful woodland park, beneath these trees lie the remains of 100,000 people murdered by the Nazis.
In July of 1941, the Nazis are already bringing people here to be killed.
This is ground zero for the final solution.
In these pits, 70,000 Jews and 30,000 others were shot and buried. But by 1943, time was running out for the Nazis. They had to destroy the evidence.
The Russians were on the border, ready to take back Lithuania. So they took 80 Jews from the surrounding villages and they brought them here to burn the bodies. You can imagine how desperate these people were.
But among the damned, an engineer named Yuri Farmer.
Using only spoons and their own hands.
They started digging an escape tunnel for 76 days. And they needed light. This is what's good about an engineer. They actually strung an electrical cable with one bulb that they found, and they strung it all the way through. They knew that if they died, the whole story of Ponar might become forgotten.
Of 80, 12 managed to escape. There were stories of their heroic struggle, but no hard evidence to back them up. Until now. Without disturbing the remains of the dead, scientists scanned the area using the latest technology. Almost to their surprise, they detected unmistakable signs of the tunnel, confirming the story.
It's exactly there.
I don't believe it. That is unbelievable. No, it isn't. We've found a major part of the tunnel.
For the first time, the heroic story of Vilna, the Jerusalem of Lithuania, can finally be told.
So, this program will be broadcast on Nova in April around Holocaust Memorial Day. So I hope this brief tour of our work has helped you understand how we try to do justice to the efforts of scientists in your field and many others. Once again, it means so much to me to be honored by people who have touched so many lives, mine included, because I, like everyone, owe a great debt to the medical research community for the work you do. Meet my grandson, Daniel. Here is Daniel, the day he was born. And here he is at 3 months. And here he is at 6 months, when on March 6, 2014, we discovered he had a heart defect and was in the throes of congestive heart failure. Just 3 days later, Daniel had open heart surgery at Boston Children's Hospital. It was the worst day of my life, and also the best, because it was the day that modern medicine, powered by decades of medical science, saved my grandson's life. So here in the next slide, you're looking at $4 million worth of equipment monitoring Daniel, keeping him breathing, and delivering precise doses of powerful medicines into his tiny bodies. Now, this story has a happy ending. Here is Daniel. Leaving the hospital a month later, and here he is just recently, at 3 years old. Completely healed and thriving, thanks to his surgeons and the people who have made medical science their life's passion. You can see why Daniel immediately came to mind when I saw the Galien Foundation's commitment to innovation to improve the human condition. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you do. It has been an honor to play a small role in helping the public understand and appreciate it. And now I'd like to thank my family who's here with me tonight. My husband Sheldon, who is the wind beneath my wings. My wonderful daughters, I have no idea where they are, Natalie Apsell and Dr. Emily Singer, Daniel's mom, and Emily's parents-in-law, Greg and Michelle Singer. Wherever you are, please stand. And of course, I want to thank my great team. Everything you've seen tonight, everything we do on air, online, for teachers and behind the scenes, is the product of an amazing group of dedicated people. Nova is a production of WGBH Boston, which is responsible for a huge amount of the PBS primetime schedule. WGBH has been my professional home for many decades, and I'm reminded every day what an unusual and creative place it is to work. I'd like to introduce our CEO, John Abbott. John, I have no idea where you are, but wherever. Our Vice President for National Programming, John Berdar. And Nova's Deputy Executive Producer, Julia Court. And now, I'd like our whole team at WGBH and NOVA to stand up and be recognized for the fantastic work you do. Thank you very much again for this award, which honors us all. Thank you.